The data always speaks. Dr. Olena Zayets lived by this mantra. As a lead astrophysicist and data analyst at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, her days were spent sifting through the vast ocean of information streaming in from the far reaches of our solar system. For years, the whispers in the cosmic wind had been the familiar static of routine astronomical observations, but lately, those whispers had begun to coalesce into something discordant. Subtle anomalies in the orbital patterns of near-Earth asteroids, minute deviations in the telemetry of deep space probes, inexplicable fluctuations in the magnetic fields of the outer planets. Individually, they were dismissed as sensor errors, cosmic dust, or minor gravitational perturbations. But Olena, with her intuitive grasp of celestial mechanics and an almost obsessive attention to detail, saw a pattern emerging, a disturbing symphony of the subtly out of tune. It started with the Trojans, those clusters of asteroids sharing Jupiter's orbit. Several of them, small, insignificant rocks, had begun to exhibit unusual accelerations, defying known gravitational models. Then came the Voyager data, reporting unexpected energy signatures near the heliopause, followed by increasingly erratic behavior from some of our older communication satellites. The whispers were growing louder, more insistent, hinting at a presence and intelligence manipulating the delicate balance of our cosmic neighborhood. Olena felt a cold knot of unease tighten in her stomach. This wasn't random. This felt orchestrated. Olena spent days, then nights, cross-referencing, resimulating, and filtering out every conceivable natural explanation. She used every algorithm, every analytical tool at her disposal. The pattern held. It wasn't just individual anomalies. It was a coordinated, systemic manipulation of objects within our own solar system. The whispers had become a clear, undeniable scream. She compiled her findings into an urgent, meticulously detailed report, complete with irrefutable data visualizations and predictive models. This was it. The moment she presented her case, the scientific world would have to confront the impossible. Her first meeting was with Dr. Elias Vance, her immediate supervisor, a seasoned but traditional astrophysicist. Vance listened, his brow furrowed, as Olena laid out the evidence, pointing to the inexplicable shifts in asteroid trajectories, the precise energy signatures, the unnerving synchronicity of the anomalies. He dismissed it as noise, sensor drift, overzealous interpretation. "Olena," he'd said, his voice laced with patronizing concern, "you're seeing patterns where there are none. The data is vast. Anomalies occur." He suggested she take a leave of absence, citing stress. Undeterred, Olena escalated. She sought out Dr. Evelyn Reed, head of interstellar operations, a woman known for her open-mindedness, but also her fierce protection of NASA's reputation. Reed's initial reaction was more nuanced, a flicker of intrigue, then a sharp, almost defensive dismissal. "Dr. Zayets, are you suggesting an extraterrestrial intelligence is manipulating our solar system with our own data?" The very notion was preposterous, bordering on career suicide. The data, no matter how compelling, was simply too far outside the established paradigm. The implication of such a truth and the panic that it would cause was simply too great. Olena felt a wall rising, not of disbelief, but of institutional inertia and fear. They weren't seeing the data, they were seeing the implications, and those were too terrifying to accept. Meanwhile, out there, beyond the comfortable confines of Earth, the silent, invisible conquest continued. The dismissals from Vance and Reed stung, but they didn't deter Olena. If anything, they ignited a fierce resolve. They weren't seeing the pattern because they weren't looking deep enough.
weren't connecting the dots between seemingly disparate data sets. Frustrated by the institutional blindness, Olena pulled her most critical findings from the classified network and began running them through her own private analytical tools deep within the clandestine confines of her home lab. She was looking for the orchestrator, the common thread, and then she found it. It started with a subtle, almost undetectable data signature embedded within the telemetry of several of NASA's oldest, seemingly defunct deep space probes: Voyager 1 and 2, Pioneer 10 and 11, and even some obscure, failed missions from decades past. These probes, long thought to be inert or merely drifting, were intermittently broadcasting, but not our data. They were relaying alien commands. The anomalies in asteroid trajectories, the magnetic field fluctuations, the probe malfunctions, they weren't random, nor were they merely external manipulation. The aliens weren't just observing. They had infiltrated our own systems, twisted our instruments into their tools. They were using NASA's own data infrastructure, our own probes and satellites, as their silent, insidious network to orchestrate the takeover of our solar system. The realization hit Olena with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't an invasion fleet from outside. It was an internal coup, a silent, systematic takeover from within our own cosmic backyard, orchestrated by an intelligence that understood our technology better than we did. The Trojan horse wasn't a metaphor, it was a reality, implemented through the very instruments humanity had sent out to explore. The whispers had been the aliens using our own deep space ears. The hum she'd picked up was their silent command relayed through our own communication grid. It was the ultimate betrayal of trust, the most insidious form of conquest imaginable. They weren't just attacking, they were repurposing our own future against us. Olena felt a cold, crushing despair. But then, a flicker of fierce determination. If they could use our network, maybe she could too. But not for observation, for counteraction.
Olena knew she was walking a tightrope. One wrong digital step, one flagged anomaly in her own network activity, and the consortium, the shadowy organization she was now certain was aware of the alien presence and likely complicit, would descend upon her like a digital storm. She had to disappear, to sever her ties to NASA and go completely dark. Her first move was to secure her home lab, stripping it of any traceable connections, routing her private network through a labyrinth of anonymized servers across the globe. She wiped her official NASA devices clean, leaving behind a carefully crafted trail of breadcrumbs pointing towards equipment malfunction and burnout. Then, she contacted the few individuals she could trust, old college friends now working in the less glamorous corners of the tech world, individuals with skills in off-grid communication, hardware fabrication, and secure data management. People who wouldn't ask too many questions and who shared a healthy skepticism of official narratives. Under the guise of a sudden fabricated family emergency, Olena vanished from JPL, leaving behind concerned emails and unanswered calls. She relocated to a remote, off-the-grid cabin nestled deep in the Carpathian Mountains, near her childhood home outside Vinnytsia. The cabin, equipped with a surprisingly robust solar power system and a heavily modified satellite dish jury-rigged for encrypted, low-bandwidth communication, became her new command center. Here, surrounded by the quiet solitude of the ancient forests, far from the prying eyes of the consortium and the oblivious hum of civilization, Olena began her true work, understanding the alien network and finding a way to disrupt it from the inside. Her first priority was to analyze the alien commands being relayed through the NASA probes to decipher their language, their objectives, and most crucially, their vulnerabilities. The conquest of the solar system had begun, silent and invisible, and Olena Zayets, a lone scientist in a remote mountain cabin in Ukraine, was now humanity's first and perhaps only line of defense.
Days bled into weeks in the secluded cabin. The biting Carpathian winds howled outside, a stark contrast to the silent, complex language scrolling across Olena's monitors. The alien communication relayed through the hijacked NASA probes was unlike anything she had ever encountered. It wasn't a linear language with discernible grammar or syntax. Instead, it resembled a complex tapestry of energy signatures, fractal patterns, and resonant frequencies, a form of communication that spoke directly to the underlying physics of the universe itself. Progress was slow, frustrating. Olena felt like an archaeologist trying to decipher the Rosetta Stone without knowing any of the languages involved. She employed every linguistic algorithm, every decryption technique she knew, but the alien code remained stubbornly opaque. Then a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of her trusted contacts, a reclusive hardware engineer named Bogdan, based in Kiev, managed to intercept a faint, low-frequency burst transmission emanating directly from one of the manipulated Trojan asteroids. The data packet was heavily corrupted, but within the digital noise, Olena recognized a recurring mathematical sequence, a fundamental constant that appeared to be woven throughout the alien communication. It was the golden ratio, phi, a number found ubiquitously in nature, from the spiral of galaxies to the structure of DNA. The aliens, it seemed, were speaking a language rooted in the fundamental geometry of the cosmos itself, a language that NASA had only scratched the surface of understanding. The chilling implication was clear: their understanding of the cosmos, and therefore their ability to manipulate it, was far beyond our own. The silent takeover was far more advanced than Olena initially feared.
With the Rosetta Stone of the Golden Ratio, Olena made rapid progress in deciphering the alien communication. She discovered that the seemingly random disruptions were actually meticulously planned phases of their solar system takeover. Certain asteroids were being repositioned into strategic Lagrange points, creating an invisible gravitational blockade. Key communication satellites were being subtly reprogrammed, their networks silently co-opted to relay the alien commands further inward. Even the magnetic fields of Jupiter and Saturn were being manipulated, creating energy conduits for purposes she couldn't yet fully grasp. The chilling realization dawned on Olena. This wasn't just about controlling physical objects. It was about controlling the very infrastructure of the solar system, the invisible network of gravity, energy, and communication that held it all together. And at the heart of their operation, she found a recurring signature, a distinct energy waveform that appeared to be the central command node, the brain of their intricate silent invasion. It was like a ghost in the machine, a non-physical entity operating within the framework of our own technology, amplified and relayed through the hijacked probes and satellites. Tracking this ghost proved incredibly difficult. It wasn't a fixed location, but rather a shifting presence, a data stream that hopped between different nodes in the network, making it virtually untraceable. However, Olena noticed a pattern. The energy waveform seemed to periodically converge on specific NASA deep space probes, using them as temporary amplification relays before jumping to another node. One probe in particular, the long decommissioned Pioneer 10, currently drifting far beyond Pluto, was being used more frequently than the others. It was an old, forgotten piece of technology, likely overlooked by human monitoring systems. Olena had a hunch. If she could somehow disrupt the alien signal at Pioneer 10 during one of these amplification cycles, it might create a significant ripple in their network, a momentary blind spot that could give her a crucial window of opportunity. It was a long shot, a Hail Mary pass across the vast emptiness of space, but it was the only lead she had.
Reaching Pioneer 10, billions of miles away, and with its own long-dormant transmitter, was a monumental challenge. Olena's off-grid setup had limited transmission capabilities. She needed to amplify her signal to piggyback on existing deep space communication arrays without alerting the consortium. This required the help of her network, the scattered echoes she had contacted before going dark. Bogdan, with his knack for repurposing old technology, managed to tap into a powerful but rarely used radio telescope array in rural Chile, disguising their transmissions within the background noise of astronomical observations. Wraith, utilizing his network of contacts within defunct military intelligence, provided Olena with the obsolete but surprisingly powerful encryption protocols needed to mask their outgoing signal from any casual monitoring. The transmission window was narrow, dictated by Pioneer 10's fleeting alignment with the Chilean array and the projected next jump of the alien command waveform. Olena had to craft a precise counter-frequency, a digital virus designed to overload the alien signal at Pioneer 10's relay point, creating a cascading disruption throughout their network. It was like trying to hit a microscopic target moving at light speed across an immeasurable distance. The tension in the small cabin was almost unbearable as the countdown began. Olena's fingers flew across her keyboard, uploading the carefully crafted payload. The low hum of her equipment seemed to synchronize with the pounding of her heart. On her monitor, a faint green line indicated the connection to the Chilean array. Then a surge of power as the amplified signal shot across the void, a tiny whisper of defiance hurled into the cosmic wind. All they could do now was wait and hope that their message in a bottle reached its target billions of miles away and that the ghost in the machine would stumble, even for a moment.
The silence in the cabin after the transmission was deafening. Olena, Bogdan, monitoring remotely from Kyiv, and Wraith waited, every nerve ending on high alert. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then a flicker on Olena's monitors, a cascade of errors rippling through the alien network data streams. The precise energy waveform, the ghost in the machine, momentarily fractured, its smooth, continuous flow disrupted by chaotic spikes of interference. In distant parts of the solar system, subtle but significant anomalies began to occur. The repositioned asteroids at Jupiter's Lagrange points wobbled precariously in their artificial orbits. The magnetic field manipulations around Saturn flickered and momentarily collapsed. Most crucially, the co-opted communication satellites experienced brief but critical blackouts, their alien-programmed relays faltering. It was a ripple effect, a momentary stutter in the otherwise seamless alien takeover, and it was all triggered by their tiny message hurled across the void to a forgotten probe billions of miles away. The consortium, however, was not blind. Olena detected a sharp spike in encrypted communication traffic across their secure networks, a frantic scramble to identify the source of the disruption. They wouldn't know it was her, not yet, but they would know something had gone wrong, that their silent conquest had encountered an unexpected resistance. The window of opportunity was small, but Olena had confirmation. Her desperate gamble had paid off. The ghost in the machine was vulnerable. Now she had to exploit that vulnerability before the aliens could adapt and the consortium could pinpoint her location. The game had changed. It was no longer a silent observation. It was an active, dangerous conflict.
The momentary disruption of the alien network, though significant, was just a pinprick. Olena knew the aliens would quickly adapt, rerouting their commands and patching the vulnerability. Her next move had to be more strategic, more impactful. She needed to plant a seed of chaos within their system, a digital virus that would continue to spread and disrupt their control even after they regained their footing. Using the insights gained from deciphering their communication protocols and the temporary network blind spot she had created, Olena began crafting a sophisticated piece of malware. It wasn't designed for outright destruction, as that would likely trigger a hostile response they couldn't handle. Instead, her virus was designed for subtle sabotage, injecting false data into their telemetry streams, creating phantom signals that would confuse their navigation systems, and subtly corrupting the commands being relayed to the asteroids and satellites. It was a digital Trojan horse designed to sow discord and mistrust within their own network. The challenge was deployment. She couldn't directly access their core command node. Her only avenue was to exploit the remaining vulnerabilities in the hijacked NASA probes, using them as unwitting carriers for her digital payload. This required precise timing and a deep understanding of the alien network's architecture. She identified several probes that were frequently used as relay points and began targeting them with her carefully crafted malware, timing the uploads to coincide with the aliens' own data transfer cycles, hoping to slip her code past their automated defenses. Meanwhile, the consortium's activity was escalating. Their surveillance of near-Earth space intensified, and Olena detected increasingly sophisticated attempts to trace her communication signals. She knew it was only a matter of time before they pinpointed her location. Her remote sanctuary was no longer safe. She had to work fast to unleash her digital chaos before the net closed in. The silent war had entered a new, more dangerous phase, a battle fought in the invisible realm of data and signals, with the fate of the solar system hanging in the balance.
Olena unleashed her digital virus, sending it spiraling across the vast distances of space, piggybacking on the very technology that had been turned against humanity. It was an unseen battle, fought in the silent language of data packets and energy signatures, a war waged light years away without a single shot fired on Earth. The initial results were subtle but promising. Olena's monitoring systems, painstakingly pieced together from salvaged equipment and Bodon's ingenuity, began to register anomalies within the alien network. Asteroid trajectories flickered erratically. Satellite telemetry data became garbled and inconsistent. There were even faint, almost imperceptible pauses in the rhythmic hum that had become the alien network's signature. The seed of chaos had been planted, and it was beginning to sprout. However, the backlash was swift and decisive. The consortium, now fully aware of a significant disruption and likely closing in on Olena's location, launched a coordinated cyber attack. Her off-grid network, for all its precautions, was under siege, barraged by sophisticated intrusion attempts. Meanwhile, the alien network itself began to adapt, isolating compromised probes and deploying sophisticated countermeasures against her virus. The digital battlefield had become a frantic, high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Under the cover of a fierce blizzard that swept through the Carpathians, providing a temporary shield against aerial surveillance, Olena made her escape from the cabin. Wraith, ever the Phantom, had secured a clandestine extraction route. As she disappeared into the swirling snow, leaving behind her makeshift command center, Olena knew this was far from over. The unseen battle for the solar system was just beginning. The aliens had been alerted. The consortium was hunting her. Humanity remained largely oblivious to the silent war raging around them. But Olena had struck the first blow, a tiny spark of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. The long night of the alien takeover had begun, but somewhere in the darkness, a single scientist, armed with knowledge and unwavering resolve, was still fighting for the dawn.